Hey there everybody, Brian here with Explosive Review. Today I'm going to be showing you how to take apart and rebuild a Autococker Ram. Now, they're all going to be a little bit different, but the same basic steps are going to apply. So our first step is going to be to take off on this Ram, which has QEVs. This is a stock Ram off of a carnivore. Now some Rams will just have barbs that come off. If you have those, I recommend just a little wrench to pull those off. These I can do by hand, but on some there will be just this little barb. I usually use just a small adjustable wrench to get those. So we're going to pull these off. Alright, set those off to the side. We'll deal with those in a minute. So, now we're left with just the body of the Ram. Next step is going to be grab a wrench. Now you want to make sure that you're using the correct size so that you can avoid putting tool marks onto it, which tons of people do, and you're just going to twist it off. Now in some cases you will have to get something to grab the body of this. I usually use a piece of rubber or a leather belt with a wrench. There are special tools for that. However, mine broke and I haven't gotten another one yet. So you should be able just to pull this off and then take out the sleeve. So we've broken it down now into its major components. Next step is going to be to clean everything up. Just a piece of paper towel, and we're going to wipe it down. You can see this one was actually quite dirty. I haven't cleaned this in, actually I don't think I've ever cleaned it. So it was definitely ready. Now usually I don't recommend that you take this part off. I mean, you can, but there's not really any kind of a reason to. It's on there generally pretty secure and not much need to touch it. Now the reasons you might want to do this, either A, just maintain. If you're just maintaining, usually just re-lubricating and cleaning will suffice, but I'm also going to show you how to actually rebuild it if you have, you know, any damage or you've got one that has quite a serious leak. So if cleaning it doesn't fix your problem, then usually you're going to have to get into replacing O-rings. Now to start, one of the hardest O-rings to reach is the one that actually seats against the shaft down in here. Now I've already taken that one out because it is quite tricky and it takes a bit of time. What I usually do is I use a dental pick. These are your friends. I use one with a little tip like this, and you're gonna have to be careful not to damage anything. I go in through the part that actually screws into the front block. I catch it and I push it out. Now the reason I do that is because it's much more difficult to try and hook it and pull it than to just push it out. And once you get it out, it's gonna look like this. The reason I pulled this one out is that I think it's a bit chewed up and it's leaking a tiny bit if you wiggle it, which I don't really want. Now that's in this particular one, it's a 006 size, and I'm just replacing it with the exact same thing in a 70 Duro Buna O-ring, which you can buy from lots of different places. Now what you do with this is I've lubed it up with just some thicker grease, because this one, it's a moving part. We want to make sure that's well lubricated and it's going to stay lubricated. Now what you do is you just take it and you're going to push it down through the back. So this is the part that screws in here. Push it in that way. We're going to take our pick and we're going to push it down into that hole. Alright, so apologies that took so long. Now you can see why I really only recommend replacing that O-ring if you absolutely need to. I end up having to use this as a bit of a backstop just to get enough grip to push down on that. Anyways, but now that that's done, we'll take care of our shaft O-ring. Again, we're going to use our dental pick. This one should be much easier. Just get it underneath, pop it off. And again, we're going to replace it with another new Buna 70 Duro O-ring. Again, just a bit of that thicker lubricant, and just slide it right on. I always recommend lubricating your O-rings before you put it onto the actual piece that you're putting it onto, because that way it lubricates the inside too and makes sure that you have a good seal. Now, usually the next step that I do is I will just lubricate this shaft a little bit. Yes, make puns if need be. Then carefully we're going to slide it through there. We don't want to damage that new O-ring. It's generally going to be quite a bit tighter, but you can feel that that's making a really nice, good seal there. And again, get a little bit of extra on here because this is going to have to lubricate the entire way down through the body of the Ram. Now what I usually do before this is, because this right here, there's no O-ring there, so that's actually creating our seal. Take a bit of Teflon tape. If you don't have Teflon tape, go out, buy it at the hardware store for, 69 cents a roll. You use it for pretty much everything when it comes to paintball. So we're gonna just apply a thin layer of that. You usually don't need very much if this is a tight fitting. If it's not, you might need a bit more. Slide it through here. We're gonna go ahead and retighten this back down. If you need to get a better grip on it, just make sure that you clean the grease off your hands there. And we're just gonna make sure that's tight. You don't need to torque it down or anything, but you do want it to be tight enough that it seals. So now that this is back together, we can see that we've got a really nice, good air seal in both directions. You can test just by plugging those holes and pushing the Ram down. We're going to talk about reattaching our QEVs. So we just want to give those, again, a quick clean, make sure that everything's good. Now there's two ways of making sure these seal properly. One is with our Teflon tape, just a really tiny little piece wrapped around here. But the way that I usually do it, if at all possible, at least with the QEVs, is with a really tiny little O-ring. This one, I went ahead and already replaced it, so it's good to go. So we'll throw that one back on. Make sure it's good and snug. This one we're going to replace though. So what you do, again, get your handy dental pick and we're going to pull it off. And the size that I usually use, I don't think this is necessarily correct, but it's what I find works best for me in my applications, is a Ram O-ring, or sorry, a three-way O-ring. So the same kind that you would use in the three-way of your gun. If you are using a mechanical, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I usually stretch a little bit with my surgical forceps. Now this can be quite tricky because you gotta kind of stretch that O-ring on there. So what I usually do is I try and get it on, and then with my fingernails I kind of spread it and push it on. Just, oh, had it for a second. Alright, so there we go. It's on there. Again, just a tiny bit more of this grease. This isn't really anything special, actually. I got it with a gun that I bought, and I'm fairly certain it's just some sort of heavy, it's almost like petroleum jelly style. And if you tighten that down on there, that should make a nice, good, sturdy seal for us. Now, so this has been completely rebuilt. Usually what I end up doing is just throwing it on, giving it a quick test, but I can already feel that this is sealing way better than it was before. So that is how you rebuild a Autococker Ram. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to rate and subscribe.